My name is Claudia Neubarth. I'm living in Hanover in the north of Germany. And I'm working freelance as a consultant in advertising and communications after working in the communications branch for over 15 years as a leading consultant and also creative director. And I'm a late student, so to say. I started to study social science 5 years ago, and right now I'm simultaneously to my work, I'm enrolled in a program for European studies, also in Hanover. And that's where my interest to cultural diplomacy and public diplomacy arose. And there are crossroads to communications and advertising, which is my profession. Develop concepts for media and communication campaigns and every type of communication. So there's a big crossroad to public diplomacy or cultural diplomacy, because it's always linked in some way of communication or transporting some kind of message, in that case via culture or other means. And that's where the connection to my interest to public diplomacy came up. And I have an interest in combining my communications background with this sort of diplomacy and international relation politics. And I think it's a really good way to look at things from another background and from another perspective. And there's a lot of things that can be reached with public or cultural diplomacy in international relations. In my opinion, public diplomacy as well as cultural diplomacy, which are of course linked to each other, it's a great means to get nations or people connected to each other, and neither if it's by governments, by NGOs, or by the people or individuals themselves. There are all these layers which can lead to more understanding and cooperation, and I think if you've got that as a basis for something, it will always be easier to get connected, to solve conflicts. I mean, it's like in personal relations, you know, if you've got a friend and then you argue, it's much more easier to find a settlement in comparison to arguing with someone you don't actually like, right? So, and in the bigger context or in the bigger picture, it's exactly the same with cultural diplomacy, I think. I don't think it can stop wars, but it can be a good preparation and a solid ground just to have a better dialogue, maybe to prevent conflicts or wars, and just stay in touch and look for other solutions. For me, cultural diplomacy means, coming from the word diplomacy, it's all about negotiating and being in dialogue with each other. And then it's, for me, to cut it down, it's like being in contact or talking to each other by the means of culture. And it's a really good method, in my opinion, to get in touch with other people, because it's a lot of not only the mind, but especially the heart and the emotion. And it's just a much more intense experience than talking only on a cognitive basis.